How's it going, guys? We're back with part 2 of the Rainbow Factory inside the story. So, I'm not going to really put an introduction. Let's just start. Okay. Against an empty carriage at the end of the lonely hall were three imposing ponies, leading in a disinterested and bored pose. One of them happened to look up as the sorry-looking trio stumbled out into the open. They were on the bottom of the edge of the Colosseum, and the vast rolling hills and plains of Equestria far visible below. Hey, boss. We got him some worthless Pegasuses. He literally said it like that. The first one called to an even bigger pony on the other side of the carriage. Suppose it's time to get to work, is it? Cool it, Hotshot. There may be more, too. No, I was the last student to go, Scootaloo spoke in sobs. Orin could only hang his head. It's... She paused, and then breathed heavily, determined to remain as strong as she could. It's just us three. Aurora's wings, they're broken. She needs help. Ain't that just a crying shame, is it? What's it to us? All the better she don't come flying back to us no more. I'm sorry I'm reading it like that, but it says that. We may have failed our damn test, but that doesn't mean we're not worth keeping alive, Scootaloo shouted in a flash of rage. She was determined to hold on to as much dignity as she could. All right, sheesh. Hey, Patches, doctor her up before we head out. I don't want any blood on them seats. Just wash that thing. You other two in the cart. Orin and Scootaloo hopped in the carriage and got as comfortable as they could on the hard seats, but made sure to leave room for Aurora. As soon as the third of the large ponies finished bending her wings, Aurora carefully stepped into the vehicle and lay down on the bench at the back. Scootaloo inched closer to her and leaned down to talk as the door to the carriage slammed shut. The boss pony was inside the back, standing by the door, watching each of them. So, Scootaloo began quietly, trying not to speak too loud. You're Aurora? I'm Scootaloo. Sorry we had to meet like this. Any meeting of a friend is a welcome meeting. Aurora spoke gently, with sincerity in her eyes. We did our best. That's all we can say. That's all any of us can say. Who's to say that city of the deported isn't a good one, anyways? The thought struck Scootaloo as she considered it. No one was ever told where the Pegasi were brought. Most ponies considered it to be some odd land, where like the zebras hailed from. That made Scootaloo realize something more profound. Hey, if we're taking where Zekor is from, then there's got to be a way to get back. It's not if we're banned from Equestria. Fluttershy, an old friend of mine, she's a Pegasus who lives in Ponyville. She never passed flight school. She never took her test. They never came and take her away. Exactly, Aurora agreed with a nod. Orin overheard and offered his thoughts. I think the reason we're sent far away is because no pony from Cladesdale ever wants to admit that someone who failed flight school could come back to their city. What a fucking horrible place, now that I think of it. I never want to go back. Maybe that's why no worthless Pegasus ever comes back. They just don't like Cloudsdale. You goddamn worthless ponies can hardly call yourself Pegasus. Boss spoke from the door. He was swaying ever so slightly as the carriage was lifted and moved to an unknown location. Useless failures is what you are. No pony comes back from exile, regardless of reason. Can't even pass your own goddamn test. You three make me sick. Scootaloo jumped from her seat, lifted herself in the air with her wings, and dove legs first at Boss. You shut the hell up about us. You have no reason to treat others like this. Boss raised a hoof and backhanded Scootaloo out of the air onto the floor. I can treat you however I want. You hardly classify as ponies to Cloudsdale, or any Equestria for that matter. Now sit the fuck down and shut up until we get to our destination. Where are we being taken anyways? Not like we can tell anyone now. I'm sure as the deliverers, you guys should know. Hell if I know. We hand this carriage off to some ponies in suits. We get a bag full of coins to keep quiet about the whole thing. It's how it's always been, for 1,000 years. The three fillies huddled together again, scared of the unknown. They kept quiet as they waded through the unbearable trip, all lost in their own thoughts. Friends, family, loved ones, pets. All will never see them again. And some would never find out why. An hour passed, and then another. Finally, the uncomfortable quiet was broken by a sudden lurch as the carriage stopped in its flight. "Ah," Boss smiled. "There's my stop. You ponies play nice now. Have fun and where the hell you're sent to." The carriage door shuffled open and Boss hopped out with a gust of cold wind. It was night outside now, with hardly any light at all. Scootaloo stared outside and noticed another figure staring in. It was all dressed in a black suit. Its tail dyed an unnatural black that could never occur in nature. Its face was covered by a dark, loose-fitting mask, concealing its mane. All was visible were rose-colored eyes, staring indifferently at the three ponies. They stopped on Scootaloo momentarily, unrecognizing, but she stared back. A second passed, the dark pony slammed the door shut, and the carriage took off once again. "At least we can talk now," Aurora whispered in the dark. But they had nothing to talk about. But with all great things comes a great responsibility, that of Cloudsdale being weather stability. The carriage finally shuddered to a stop. The three desolate foals blinked their eyes awake, having all resolved to conserve energy for whatever came next. With a loud scraping noise, the door shook and swung wide open. Several more ponies, obscured by masks and suits, were moving around the area. Scootaloo blinked against the light from what she was seeing. They were in a cloud building. Her eyes adjusted, she noticed more details. Several of the blackened ponies were rushing around, holding some clipboards and carrying briefcases and other important-looking items on their backs. The complex was full of machinery and signs. Pipes rang along the ceiling, with a loud whir ran in the background, occasionally joined with other industrial sounds such as crashes and alarms. Scootaloo gasped. This place, the architecture. It looks so familiar. I think we're in the weather factory. Orin frowned. That can't be right. We were traveling for way too long. We've got to be far away from Equestria now, not to mention the city. Actually, Scootaloo may be right, Aurora mused. I noticed. It was the same amount of time from when we left the Coliseum to the place the carriage delivery swapped. That it was the swap place from here. But I don't know. I'm confused. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Welcome, mules, a large and powerful voice commanded. Several of the suited ponies moved away for a deep, dark red Pegasus dressed in a white lab coat. You degenerates are probably wondering where you are. Stupid fillies. You are in Cloudsdale, the Rainbow Facility, to be correct. Allow me to show you around. What's going on here? Do you expect us to be slaves? Because I'd rather be deported, thanks, Scootaloo yelled. Orin and Aurora got off their seats and stood behind Scootaloo, nodding in agreement. Like you failures have a choice. You'll be here for the rest of your lives. Oh, I'm sorry. Where are my manners? I am Dr. Atmosphere. My degree isn't a medical one, I shall reassure you. In any case, you're picturing some dreadful surgery going on behind the scenes. Strange how many worthless Pegasus get that idea. No, my degree is in engineering. I'm one of the four clotes in this factory. I'm sure you all had the tour of the lower factory, no? The three ponies nodded slowly, unsure of what's going on. Excellent! Can you tell me where our tour begins? Orin spoke up first. Where the spectra comes from upstairs and is mixed. Very good. What a pity you're utterly useless to the flock. You could have been a smart one. Dr. Atmosphere smiled sarcastically and patted Orin on the head. But today we're on the upper floor. Please, follow me, and don't get too far behind, or one of my helpers will be forced to, oh, encourage you. With that, he winked at the suited ponies. With nods, three of them at the rear leaned forward and jabbed each of the Pegasuses with tasers, shocking them to the ground. Dr. Atmosphere wind and laughter as they all yelped and fell, and continued into a soft chuckle as they all stood again. Scootaloo blinked more tears from her eyes and shook herself again, trying to lose the tingling in her nerves. She turned and quickly looked at each of the suited ponies, catching each of them in the eye when she could. None of them were the rose-eyed pony from the carriage. She started to walk behind the red engineer. You simply must be careful in this department, Dr. Atmosphere began in a tone unlike many to her guides on the lower floors. There's plenty of nooks and cranes and vents and vats you could fall into. One must be careful not to hurt themselves. After all, you're all hopeless as it is. Any more so, we couldn't use you. He glanced behind himself maliciously as three fools frowned in insult. They were walking down the series of halls with vibrating machines and assembly lines lining the way, occasionally ducking under low-hanging wires or carefully stepping under steaming pipes. As they walked through, the building became cooler and cooler. As three were watching, sensing, looking for any way out, they couldn't see any. Now, let me tell you all a story. Cloudsdale's where the weather is made. Without us, the rest of Equestria would starve, freeze, drown, and generally be not a very happy place. That gives us a special honor, that one that can't be tainted by or incompetent fools like you. How could the world look up and trust us if Pegasi like you are flying around wearing the Cloudsdale name? No, we needed to do something with all of you. And then we got a delicious idea one day over 1,000 years ago. Those were some smart ponies back then, I'll say. You don't find too many of them these days. But I digress. Well, here now, through these doors, quickly now, before more encouragement is supplied. Dr. Atmosphere opened a heavy-looking door in a cramped corridor and offered a hoof inside. Scootaloo stared up at him. He glanced at the suited pony. Scootaloo and the others walked inside as he laughed again. Enjoy the rest of your pitiful life. And with that, he slammed the door closed. They all turned and looked at a big room they had been led into. It was fairly open and empty, almost like a theater room. At the end of the room, there were 6 square vats, each one nearly full with individual spectra. Above them was a particular-looking machine. From a central stack, 6 hoses broke off and led above each of the individual vats. At the top of the stack was a simple opening, red with rust, despite the rest of the machine being shiny and clean. Even further above was a fairly complex-looking object, with chains and gears hanging off and beams and pipes looking loosely. Running even higher than that, the whole machine was the length of a scaffolding, with doors on either side leading out of the room. Down on the floor, a small collection of defeated, crying ponies sat, chatting quietly. Those suits, they're from that other flight school across town, Aurora informed, sounding shocked. And those other ponies sitting over there? See? I remember a trip we went on once with Levitating Archer's private school. I remember them from that trip. So, this is where all the failures go? Not deported, but forced to work forever? Orin sobbed quietly, and exchanging for help someone he had doomed himself and his good friend to a life of servitude. Scootaloo reached a reassuring wing over and lifted his chin. She smiled at him, understanding his depression. At least we won't have to go through it alone, she cooed softly. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the group of ex-students. One pony from an unidentified school took off, headed towards one of the doors on the scaffolding. Immediately, 2 suited ponies launched at record speed and both clipped to fly away with their tasers. The ponies spasmed in air, and then dropped like a stone. With an audible crack as she landed, and a violent burst of twitching, all the ponies walked back, staring horrified at their friend. They watched, hopefully, for a long time. He didn't move. Some cried softly. Most turned away, too far confused to feel any more emotion. I guess that option's out, Aurora said quietly to no one in particular. But you can't fly right now, anyways, Orin questioned. That medic guy, Patches or whatever what he's called, he popped my whims back into their joints and bandaged them where my skin tore. I won't be winning any races, but I can fly. They slowly walked forwards and joined the group of ponies, looking at each other with understanding sorrow. Eyes front and center, you incept mules, one of the suited ponies shouted. Over the previous display, no one challenged that order and stared at the scaffolding, just as one of the doors opened. Well, guys, I'm going to end it here because it's already been like 16 minutes, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and part 3 will be up really soon. So yeah, subscribe to become part of the Wolfpack today. The link for this fanfiction will be in the description. I hope you guys like it. So see ya!